Hello and welcome. Tonight we're going to walk into a subject that touches almost everyone in some way: fear. Not the everyday worries you can brush aside, but the deep, gripping kind of fear that lives under your skin. The kind that makes your heart race, your palms sweat, and your breath shallow, even when you know logically you're not in danger. This is the world of phobias. Invisible cages that shrink your freedom and dictate how small or large your life can be. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to BookSnap, and comment below the title of the book you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Now imagine a person standing in front of a door. On the other side is something they want. Perhaps an opportunity, a new friendship, a long-awaited experience. Yet the door is guarded by a shadow. For some, that shadow takes the shape of a spider. For others, it is the open sky, or a crowded elevator, or the thought of speaking before a group of strangers. The shadow whispers, "Stay back, stay safe," and so they turn away. Not because they want to, but because the fear feels immovable. Phobias are powerful not because the danger is real, but because the mind makes the imagined danger feel realer than the ground beneath your feet. If you've ever seen someone freeze at the sight of a harmless insect, or refuse to board a plane despite knowing the statistics, you've witnessed this invisible prison at work. And perhaps you felt it yourself, when you knew there was nothing to fear, yet your body refused to listen. The tragedy of phobias is not only the moments they steal, but the lives they quietly narrow. A person who fears flying may never see the world beyond their own borders. Someone afraid of water may never feel the simple joy of floating on a calm sea. Someone afraid of failure may never take the leap toward a dream. And all of this because of a reflex buried deep in the mind, repeating itself over and over like a broken record. But here's the astonishing truth: that record can be changed. What once seemed carved in stone can dissolve in minutes, if you know where to look. Sooraj Achar's work suggests that phobias are not lifelong sentences, but patterns of thought and sensation. Patterns can be rewoven. What feels like a locked cage is often a trick of perspective. And once you see the trick for what it is, the bars fade away. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself facing that one fear you rarely speak of. Maybe it's standing on a high balcony. Maybe it's walking into a room full of strangers. Whatever it is, feel the way your chest tightens just by imagining it. Now, hold on to this question. What if you could walk through that moment without your fear following you? What if, in just 10 minutes, you could stand where you once froze and feel only calm? That is the promise of this journey. A promise not of theory or abstract philosophy, but of practice. Simple, direct, and profoundly effective. It begins by understanding what phobia really is, not as a mystery, but as a loop your mind has been running for years, a loop that can be interrupted. And when it is interrupted, the shadow guarding that door shrinks until you realize it was never real to begin with. So tonight we open that door together. Step by step, we'll trace how fear is built, how it grips, and how it can unravel faster than you ever imagined. The invisible cage is not as solid as it feels, and the key, you'll soon see, is already in your hand. Phobias don't appear out of nowhere. They are not random punishments from the universe, nor marks of weakness. They are roots buried in memory, woven into your nervous system by moments your mind could not fully process. To understand how to loosen their grip, you first have to walk back to where they began. Think of a child, barely old enough to tell the difference between danger and safety. One afternoon, a dog runs toward them, barking loudly. The dog may be friendly, its tail wagging, but the child doesn't know that. All they feel is terror, a heart racing too fast, breath caught in the throat, legs frozen. That single moment, etched deeply, can become the seed of a lifelong phobia of dogs. Years later, even when logic says this animal is harmless, The body remembers that first panic, and so the fear repeats itself like a reflex. Or imagine someone who once stepped into an elevator that jolted suddenly, trapping them inside for long minutes. The lights flickered, the walls seemed to close in, and the helplessness was unbearable. Even after being rescued, their body kept the memory. The next time they approach an elevator, their pulse quickens. Soon, just the thought of entering one fills them with dread. The mind has linked elevator with danger, and the body responds as if the danger is present every time. This is how phobias are born, through association. An event, often brief, sometimes forgotten by conscious thought, pairs an object or situation with overwhelming fear. The brain, designed to protect, stamps it with a warning label, avoid at all costs. And the label sticks, even when reality has changed. But here's the paradox. What feels like a personal flaw is actually evidence of a healthy system doing its job too well. Your brain's first priority is survival. When something once felt threatening, it created a shortcut, a way to keep you away from that trigger instantly without hesitation. Phobias, then, are survival strategies gone rogue. The system that saved you once refuses to switch off, even when you're safe. That's why phobias often seem irrational. They aren't guided by reason. They are guided by memory, sensation, and repetition. The person who dreads flying knows the plane is safer than driving. The one who fears public speaking knows the crowd poses no danger. Yet knowing isn't enough. The body carries its own history, and this is where many people get trapped. They think, I just have to be braver. I just have to force myself. But brute willpower rarely works, because phobias don't live in the realm of will. They live in the nervous system, in the rapid-fire circuits between amygdala and body, between memory and muscle. You can't argue with them. You can only rewire them. Sooraj Achar's insight is that these roots of fear, once seen clearly, can be softened and reshaped. They are not iron chains, but vines. They grow where the soil of memory allows them, but with the right shift, they can be pulled free without tearing you apart. Understanding this is the first step. Your fear was learned, and anything learned can be unlearned. Pause and let that truth settle in. The shadow you carry is not a permanent feature of who you are. It is a habit your mind picked up. And habits, no matter how strong, can be replaced with new ones. So as we continue, picture those roots in your own life. Where did they begin? What moment planted them? You may not remember exactly, but trust that your body does. And trust, too, that it can be taught a new story. Because the roots of fear may run deep, but they are not unbreakable. Picture the body as a finely tuned alarm system. Every wire, every sensor, every bell has one purpose: to protect you. When a real intruder enters, the alarm is your salvation. But what happens when the alarm malfunctions, shrieking at shadows, ringing at the slightest breeze? That is what a phobia feels like inside your nervous system. The alarm bell blaring when there is no true danger. The moment a phobia is triggered, your body shifts into survival mode. Your heart pounds, pumping blood toward your muscles as if preparing you to run. Your breath becomes shallow, fast, as though you're about to sprint. Muscles tense, sweat rises, pupils widen. These reactions are ancient, carved into our biology over thousands of years. Once upon a time, they saved us from predators in the dark. But in the present, they can be set off by something as small as a spider crossing the floor. And here lies the torment. Logic knows the truth, but the body refuses to listen. You could tell yourself 1,000 times that the spider is harmless, that the airplane is safe, that the elevator is just a box moving up and down. Yet the amygdala, the small almond-shaped cluster deep in your brain, has already pressed the panic button. It does not wait for reason. It acts in a fraction of a second. For the one caught in this cycle, the fear feels inescapable. The body is hijacked. Thoughts race, get out, get away, escape. And often, escape is exactly what happens. The person flees, avoids, withdraws. In the moment, this feels like relief. But underneath, the loop tightens. Every escape teaches the brain, yes, that was dangerous. Yes, avoidance was right. The phobia grows stronger each time it wins. Think of it like a path in a forest. The more you walk the same trail, the clearer it becomes, until it is the only way forward. Fear carves its trail with each repetition, and soon it seems like the only road your mind can travel. But here's the essential truth. This path is not destiny. It is just a trail worn by repetition. And trails can be abandoned. New ones can be forged. Sooraj Achar explains that the body's alarm bell is not the enemy. It is simply miswired. Your task is not to destroy it, but to reset it, to show your nervous system that the trigger is not a threat. Once the alarm learns this, the shriek fades. The system quiets. The body stands down. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine walking into a room where your greatest phobia waits. Notice how quickly your body reacts, how instantly the alarm flares. Now, imagine placing your hand gently on that alarm, like calming a frightened child. Imagine whispering, "It's safe now." With the right practice, that is exactly what becomes possible. The fear that once erupted like thunder becomes a quiet hum, then silence. This is the turning point. Understanding that your body is not betraying you. It is protecting you in the only way it knows. And once you accept that, you can begin the work of retraining it. You can begin to teach your alarm system when to ring and when to rest. If fear is a loop, then phobia is the loop gone unchecked, spinning endlessly, louder each time. But the brain is not fixed in stone. It is plastic, flexible, capable of rewiring itself at astonishing speed. This is where the possibility of healing begins. Think of your brain as a network of paths. Each thought, each reaction, each habit is a trail carved into the landscape. The more you repeat it, the deeper the trail becomes. Phobias are nothing more than deep trails, carved by repetition of fear. But no matter how deep, a trail is still just one of many possible routes. Step off it once, twice, 3 times, and already a new path begins to appear. Sooraj Achar shows us that these fear loops are not destiny, but habits of the nervous system. The same way a person learns to tie their shoes, ride a bicycle, or drive a car, they also, often unconsciously, learn to fear. The body associates a trigger with panic, and repetition seals the pattern. The brilliance is this: if fear can be learned, calm can also be learned, and the learning doesn't need years of therapy or countless exposures. Sometimes, it only needs a sharp interruption. Imagine someone listening to a song on repeat. The melody is haunting, relentless, and they can't escape it. Then suddenly, a hand reaches over and switches the record. A new song begins. The old one fades away. That is what interrupting a phobic loop feels like. One moment, your body is caught in the same old rhythm of panic. The next, with the right intervention, the rhythm breaks. A new melody takes its place. This is not denial, nor pretending the fear doesn't exist. It is retraining the mind, showing it evidence that the trigger is harmless. The brain updates itself the way software does. Once a bug is corrected, the system runs differently, and the update can happen fast, far faster than most imagine. For years, people believed phobias required endless exposure therapy, slow desensitization, or deep analysis. But Achar offers a different vision. That change can be swift, even instant. When you interrupt the loop at the right moment, the brain cannot return to the old rhythm. It adapts. It chooses a new path. This doesn't mean courage will suddenly erase fear. Courage alone fights against the loop. It pushes, but often fails. What works instead is awareness combined with the precise technique. Awareness to recognize that the fear is just a signal, not reality. Technique to reroute the signal into calm. When these meet, transformation is not gradual but immediate. Pause for a second and reflect. How many years of your life have been bent around a phobia? How many moments lost, places avoided, opportunities passed by? Now consider the possibility that the loop you thought was unbreakable could collapse in minutes. Imagine standing face to face with what once terrified you, and instead of panic, feeling only steady breath. That is the power of rewiring the pattern. The cage was never solid iron. It was a set of wires crossing in your mind. And wires can be rearranged. What once trapped you can be reshaped into a doorway. Here is where the promise turns practical. 10 minutes. That is all it takes to undo years of fear when you understand the method. Imagine it like holding a tangled knot in your hands. At first it looks impossible to undo, a mess of threads wound tighter each time you pull. But then you notice a single loose end. Tug it gently, and the entire knot unravels. That loose end, in the language of Sooraj Achar, is focus. Phobia feeds on fixation. The mind locks onto the trigger, the spider, the airplane, the crowd, and magnifies it until it fills your entire awareness. The first step of the cure is to break that fixation. You cannot reason with it, but you can shift where your attention rests. In practice, this may mean focusing intently on your breathing, on the sensation of your feet pressing into the ground, or on a vivid memory of safety. The act of shifting breaks the loop. The second step is movement. Fear thrives in stillness because panic freezes the body. When you move, shaking out your hands, rolling your shoulders, even walking a few steps, you interrupt the body's alarm pattern. The physical break gives the mind new information. I am not trapped. I am not powerless. The third step is reassociation. This is the heart of the method. You take the trigger and pair it with calm instead of panic. For example, as you imagine the spider or the airplane, you simultaneously breathe deeply, relax your muscles, and perhaps even smile. The brain, confused at first, cannot hold two opposite states for long. Gradually, it learns a new link. Spider equals calm, airplane equals ease, elevator equals safety. The old association crumbles, and because the brain updates quickly when given clear input, this process does not drag on for months. In as little as 10 minutes of focused practice, a phobia can lose its edge, sometimes vanish altogether. It feels almost miraculous, but the mechanics are simple. Interrupt, redirect, replace. Picture a man who has feared heights his entire life. The thought of climbing even a short ladder makes his stomach twist. One day he tries this method. He stands near a balcony, heart pounding, and instead of retreating, he grounds his feet, breathes slowly, and shakes the tension from his arms. He keeps his eyes on the horizon instead of the drop below. The fear surges, then falters. Within minutes, a strange calm spreads. He takes another step closer. The balcony no longer feels like an abyss, but simply a space. The loop has broken. This is not theory. Thousands of people who once believed they would always be prisoners of fear have found release in this way. Some describe it as a curtain lifting, others as a chain snapping. Always the language is the same. It was gone. Just gone. 10 minutes. That is the gift. But it requires full presence. You cannot half try. You must step into the moment with all your attention, allow the fear to rise, and then guide it through the steps until it dissolves. Do this once, and the loop weakens. Do it twice, and the loop disappears. Think about your own life. What would you reclaim if those 10 minutes set you free? Which doors, once guarded by shadows, would you finally walk through? Hold that image, because soon, the method will not just be an idea. It will be your experience. Fear is never conquered in the abstract. It lives in the body, and so it must be met in the body. The moment of breakthrough arrives when you dare to step into the fire, not to be burned, but to watch the flames vanish as you walk through them. Imagine someone who has carried a terror of flying for decades. They've memorized excuses, mapped out long road trips, even missed weddings and opportunities rather than board a plane. But now, armed with the method, they choose to confront the fear directly. The airport feels like enemy ground at first. The sound of rolling suitcases, the sight of planes taking off, the sharp scent of fuel. Every cue awakens the old alarm. As they approach the gate, the body shakes with resistance. The heart beats like a drum of war. But instead of running, they pause. They feel their feet pressing into the ground, reminding themselves, I am here. I am safe. They roll their shoulders, exhale slowly, and let the air leave their chest like a tide receding. The surge of panic rises, but they don't fight it. They let it crest, and as it does, they shift their focus outward, to the steady hum of voices around them, to the soft weight of the boarding pass in their hand. The loop wavers. Then comes the key moment, reassociation. As they picture themselves stepping onto the plane, they simultaneously breathe deeply and allow the body to soften. Fear is tied to tension, so relaxation unties the knot. The trigger, once welded to panic, now begins to link with calm. In 10 minutes of steady practice, the reaction that ruled them for years starts to crack. This is what stepping into the fire feels like. It is not a heroic display. It is quiet, subtle, often invisible to others. It is the choice to face the trigger without escape, to ride the wave of fear while guiding the body into stillness. And when the wave breaks, you realize there was no fire after all. Only smoke, only illusion. The same can happen with smaller fears. A woman terrified of spiders chooses to look at one from across the room. Her breath catches, but she places a hand on her chest, grounding herself. She exhales, smiles slightly, and whispers, "Safe." Each repetition rewires her body's memory. The spider, once a monster, shrinks into an insect. The cage door swings open. What matters here is not the size of the phobia, but the willingness to step into it with the method in hand. Some discover freedom in minutes. Others need a few rounds of practice. But always the principle holds. Fear loses its grip the moment you stop feeding it avoidance. Think of it like shadows in a dark room. Avoidance is keeping the lights off, terrified of what might be there. Confrontation, with awareness and calm, is flipping on the switch. The shadow scatters, because it was never solid to begin with. Sooraj Achar reminds us, phobia is not a beast lurking in your DNA. It is a pattern, a loop. And once you step directly into its path and refuse to run, the loop collapses. The shadow dissolves, and suddenly, you are free to walk forward into a life no longer guarded by invisible cages. Freedom does not announce itself with trumpets. It often slips in quietly, like dawn creeping over a horizon. One moment, the fear feels absolute, impossible to escape. The next, it is simply gone. What was once an unmovable wall turns out to be mist you can walk through. Imagine the man who once avoided balconies. For years he would step back the moment his eyes caught the view of a drop. His chest would seize, his palms would sweat, his whole body would revolt. But after practicing the 10-minute method, he finds himself standing where he once froze. His hands rest calmly on the railing. He looks out at the skyline, not with terror, but with awe. What had been a battlefield is now a window. This release is more than relief. It is liberation. When a phobia dissolves, it takes with it the heavy cloak of shame and frustration. So many live thinking, why can't I just be normal? Why does this little thing control me? They hide their fears, build their lives around them, and carry the secret weight in silence. But when the chain breaks, that weight falls. What remains is lightness, expansion, the simple joy of being unafraid. And the change often feels permanent, because once the nervous system learns a new story, once it experiences the trigger without panic, the old association loses its power. The brain cannot be tricked back into believing the lie it has already disproved. It's like a magician's trick revealed. Once you see the strings, you can never be fooled again. Think of a woman who once dreaded public speaking. The very thought made her tremble. Her voice would crack, her throat would dry, her legs would shake. After one session of rewiring, she stands before an audience and feels steady. The same spotlight that once exposed her now empowers her. The crowd is not an enemy, but a circle of witnesses to her courage. The fear that once defined her identity has dissolved. What follows this freedom is possibility. Travel becomes possible. Connection becomes possible. Opportunities once declined can now be embraced. The world expands, not because it changed, but because the invisible walls are gone. You find yourself walking into rooms, boarding planes, speaking aloud, or simply living without the constant calculation of avoidance. This is not only about phobias. It is about trust in your own mind's capacity to heal. To know that what once ruled you can be undone in minutes plants a deeper seed. Confidence. A belief that you are not at the mercy of your fears, but the author of your response. And that belief carries into every corner of life. Pause and breathe into this picture. Yourself, free from the fear that once held you hostage. Feel the spaciousness of it, the strength of it. That is what waits on the other side of the loop. Not just relief, but renewal. A return to yourself, unguarded, unshackled, unafraid. When fear dissolves, something unexpected takes its place. The energy that once fueled panic doesn't vanish. It transforms. What once froze you becomes fuel for courage, momentum, and confidence. Fear is not destroyed. It is reclaimed, redirected, made useful. Think of fire. Left unchecked, it can burn down a house. But the same fire, placed in a hearth, warms the entire home. Phobia is fire in the wrong place. Wild, destructive, consuming. Healing is not about putting out the flame. It is about bringing it back under your control, where it can light the path ahead. Sooraj Achar invites us to see our former fears as teachers. The very trigger that once crippled you can become the reminder of your strength. The spider, the crowd, the airplane, the high balcony, they no longer signal danger, but triumph. Each encounter becomes proof. I was once a prisoner here, and now I walk free. This shift does something profound to the mind. It rewrites the story you tell about yourself. Before, the story might have been, I'm someone who panics. I'm someone who avoids. After, it becomes, I'm someone who faced it. I'm someone who overcame. That new identity bleeds into everything else. The job interview feels less daunting. The bold conversation becomes easier. Even life's unexpected challenges no longer look like threats, but opportunities to practice courage. Picture the man who once feared heights. After his breakthrough, he chooses to climb a hill he always avoided. At the top, the view stretches endlessly. The wind brushes his face, not as an enemy, but as a friend. He feels taller, steadier, more alive. What once was terror is now a source of joy. Or think of the woman who once dreaded speaking aloud. She now welcomes the microphone, not for the sake of proving herself, but because she has learned to channel the very energy that once shook her hands. The tremor has become resonance, the fear transformed into presence. When fear turns to fuel, you stop asking, "What if I fail?" and begin asking, "What else can I do?" Life grows larger, choices expand. The energy once trapped in avoidance becomes the energy that propels you forward. And the beauty is this: every time you face what was once a phobia, you reinforce the lesson. The nervous system learns, over and over, that you are safe. What was once fragile confidence becomes unshakable strength. You no longer brace for collapse, but trust in your own resilience. So pause for a moment and reflect. The fear that once shrank your world could become the very force that expands it. The shadow that once blocked your path could become the torch that lights it. That is the alchemy of this practice. Fear into fuel, limitation into liberation, phobia into power. A life without phobia is not a life without fear. Fear will still visit you, as it visits all human beings. But the difference is this: it no longer rules you. It no longer decides where you can go, what you can do, who you can become. Instead of shrinking from the world, you expand into it. Imagine waking up and planning your day without calculation. No more asking, "What if the elevator breaks? What if I freeze on stage? What if I can't handle it?" Instead, you move freely, guided by curiosity rather than avoidance. The world feels wider. Colors seem brighter. Possibilities open that you once thought were closed forever. This fearless life is not reckless. It is not about chasing danger for the thrill of it. It is about living fully, without invisible chains. It is standing at the edge of the ocean and choosing to swim. It is booking the flight and stepping onto the plane with ease. It is speaking your truth aloud, without the tremor of shame. And the ripple goes further. Those around you notice. They see the difference in how you walk, how you speak, how you breathe. Confidence is contagious. Your freedom becomes permission for others to seek their own. What was once your private battle becomes a quiet gift to the people you love. Sooraj Achar closes his teaching with a reminder: the cage was never real. It was built of memory, repetition, and misfired alarms. And if a cage can be built, it can be dismantled. What you hold now is proof that liberation can come not after years, but in minutes, if you are willing to step in, break the loop, and rewrite the story. Take a deep breath. Picture that one thing you once feared most. Now see yourself walking through it, calm, steady, free. Hold that image, not as fantasy, but as the life waiting for you. Because the path to fearlessness is not far. It is here, within reach, within 10 minutes. And as you carry this forward, remember, every shadow that rises is only an invitation to flip the switch and let the light back in. The fearless life is not a distant dream. It is yours now. It is yours now. It is yours now. It is yours now.